As we were preparing this show, I was talking to RJ this morning about distribution can be a big problem. Fast food restaurants, frozen food, heat up the dough, heat up the cheese, heat up the McDonald's hamburger called meat or whatever at Mickey D's. Getting the workers is the hard part. It ends up, nobody really wants to work there. They don't get paid much, but they are on almost every corner. And RJ, the idea of that type of manpower to get fentanyl, crack, meth, if you want it, it's in every town in the United States, from what I understand. You ever heard about the drug problem in the United States?
Yeah, the CIA operative as far as laundering money. I think I have heard a little bit about that operation. Yep.
Okay, those guys, they get it by they're providing a service that people want the product.
Yeah, there's a customer base, certainly.
Yeah. I never really had the urge to go out and buy the heroin and put it in the spoon and heat it up and then soak it through a cotton ball, tie off my arm, and just fire it up. I mean, is that ever? How about you, Mark?
Find out.
How about you? One big pond. Have you ever just thought, I got this overwhelming urge to stick a needle in my arm?
Yeah, find out what you're missing.
Like I said, I don't know why they're doing it, but I know I have dealt with I don't want to make it sound like, hundreds, but a lot of people, and I've known heroin addicts since the 70s. To me, they get ornery and they want the pain to go away. And it works on heroin, but it doesn't last. And that they keep wanting that feeling of no pain.
The temporary reprieve of that
reality. Whereas the meth heads seem to lose their soul faster. Because you counsel a meth head and it's fine, then they want to strangle you. Weird, right? Hey, everybody, welcome to Mudflood was Armageddon. The Mudflood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Now, everybody knows, and I'm not trying to hide anything. Yeah, I've done some drugs. I've smoked the opium and that tar. I guess one word would describe it. Yummy. I'm not promoting it, but at the time, if the idea of having a headache didn't enter my mind, and all of a sudden, I liked Peter Frampton more than I, looking back, should have. I mean, he's okay, but when you smoke a little of the opium for $5 tar, at the 70s for one time, all of a sudden Peter Frampton's the greatest guitar player in the world. Bail me out, RJ. I'm looking up the thing here, man. So we're going to show some videos of and pictures. I wonder what the pictures are. Here's a picture. Poets and writers made sure the newspapers stayed engaged with liberalism. I know I'm always just like, Republicans and Democrats both suck. But at least the Republicans act like they're against abortion and some things that seem obvious. Democrats and liberals, that's their go-to. Darwin, eugenics, evolution, that's their thing. Here's the guy, Travaic, invented steam, opened up a little situation. The powers that be saw no way for them to make money with it right now. So he died in poverty, although he's promoted now as a genius. Finally, Restibus Orbit. So this means with his 75,000, it will trickle down, as they say now, RJ, about the Mazda press, the heavy press, the recent advanced technology. So I will show them how that'll work out.
Not
Suspicious.
many thumbs, pointing up versus his subscriber base. But again, I don't know how many views it may have had at that time of the screenshot.
Right. I think it was a relatively new video too. You see, what you see here is a pretty busy thing, right? With this piece of paper, the United States purchased Alaska from Russia. And supposedly they got this in the bank and said, nothing about this looks suspicious. How come 18 people have signed it sideways? And what the hell is going on? But they took the check, they say, and here's their proof that it wasn't Romans, it was the United States that simply were fascinated with them. We paid Russia with this, and they said, sure, why not? That was my thumbnail from yesterday because I love that hat. There they are. This was a big deal to me, RJ.
Kicked off what is known as the Heavy Press Program. This funded an effort to build several very large closed die and extrusion presses in the US, but also to make sure we had the biggest presses in the world. But shortly after the program started, the Korean War broke out and American industry was urgently put into action to make war material. Thus, during World War II,
So, as Restibus Orbit, the one guy who's, got to 75,000, he'll get the word out that the recent, but they don't take it far enough. It was the plan. This was 6-7 years ago, 5 years at least, that I realized. What did I realize? The white people of the world weren't sharing. The mob weren't letting each other dip their beak. Germany had a technology it wasn't sharing, and the rest of the world wanted it, or the Kaiser and his people would have ruled the world. Recent history claiming that this is how it happened when we know it was all part of Satan's plan. First time I saw this, it made a lot of sense. Who would want to be left behind on this economic revolution?
when the Allies examined shot down German planes, they noticed something disturbing. The planes contained parts which were far more advanced than anything the Allies had. These parts were huge forgings, basically large pieces of metal which had been squeezed under tremendous pressure in a press sort of like a gigantic waffle iron. These large forgings were stronger, lighter, and took far, far less time to produce than the methods the Allies were using, which partially explained how the Germans were making so many planes which performed so well. The Germans could quickly stamp out these huge, complex forgings, but the US would have to make many parts, consuming hundreds of hours of personnel and machining time, and they still would not be as light or stiff. After World War II, America brought back 3 large German presses as war reparations, a 5,000
RJ, that's a word we don't hear a lot anymore. Reparations. We went to war and so we took our payment out of their hide.
Yeah, the story behind that story is the financing that allowed, that technology to be brought to fruition. And they
that fiat money thing?
well, I mean, it's no secret, the Bush dynasty or Walker, whatever, the banker cat that was part of
Prescott.
sending the necessary funds to finance such a project. Yeah, it's follow the money also,
Yeah.
not just
It's been a hard
the
sell.
technology, not just the technology, but following the money that funds how it happens.
Now, these were the countries that were involved in what they claim is the United States first built from scratch from their engineers. All of these countries in 1950 supplied parts to build something so heavy they had to rely on its weight sinking it into the ground at the right, being in the right place to stamp these out. It's been a hard sell convincing people that because of this video, I was able to go back and be led by the Spirit to say, Paco, go check out quantum physics. It's fake. That's not how it went down, but that's what it ended up being. And quantum physics is fake. They faked it so that it's part of the mass hypnosis of globism, of denying the firmament, of denying the Bible, of normal people believe, yeah, we won the war, so Russia took the big ones, we took the small ones, and everything's changed now because we can build these jets without rivets. Yay! What am I trying to say?
Well, yeah, it's a time. Yeah, I mean, the other is an inferior product compared to what these parts represent.
Yeah, when they said that it took hundreds of hours to rivet those things together for one part.
Assembly, yeah, to assemble the components versus
maybe if they had robots.
you'd still end up with an inferior product in comparison.
The land raising pigs and cattle. They built huts for smoking meat, given the Taino word boucan. In French, they'd call themselves boucaniers, or buccaneers. Now, they would have been content to stay farmers forever. But then the Spanish arrived and attacked, so the buccaneers took refuge on a small island off the northern coast, a place called Tortuga. And from there, they'd take their revenge. Now, at first, the Frenchmen were only interested in making life miserable for the
At first, the French were, RJ, their only interest was, how can I make life miserable for these people? Should we take that at face value?
Well, critique their creativity on how to make life
That's all
miserable.
they cared about. That's all they cared about, RJ. When they went to this island here, they're going like, how can I muddy the water? Hey, that's a star fort, baby. Thanks for the small picture. We're going to find out Wikipedia was a Clinton initiative. You know, they got a lot of money. People send them money for the Clinton initiative. So they founded Wikipedia. How cool is that? Hey, look, a Phrygian cap. Thanks for the small picture, Hillary Clinton. So Tortuga, you know, we'll probably find some better images, not from the Wikipedia thing. But isn't it a large man-made island out there? Let's get specific. Why are they keep showing the turtles?
They're so cute.
Is there something about
reptiles?
Is there something about that island I'm missing with yeah, there it is. It's that large island with the star fort on it. This is built into the ocean. Yeah. There was no island there. They wanted to build a fort back in the day, as the Lunchbox crew says, they called up Donkeys Incorporated. I love that. And said, we got another project for you guys. And they built this. And they started getting the
Get her
sugar.
done.
They wanted the sugar.
Spanish, but soon their exploits would earn the attention of others who sought to cause trouble for their enemies. And back then, well, everyone had enemies.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the demand for piracy soared, and more people, out-of-work farmers, runaway slaves, and even noblemen, made their way to
Slaves, broke farmers, disenfranchised noblemen. They love sugar. But you know what? I watched this darn thing waiting for them to talk about how Ellen White in the Seventh-day Adventist, she somehow, I'm not saying it was like one of those weird situations where she had a sissy boy husband, but she did. And then she invited the twin Kellogg brothers to come live with her and taught them how they ended up putting sugar, refined sugar for the first time in Post Toasties and then Kellogg cornflakes, and the rest is history. But there was no mention of it. But this guy, seriously.
Yeah, that it's a transition like most commodities early on that were so labor intensive until the machinery has been perfected for mass, processing, and distributing it to the masses that can't live without it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's labor intensive.
Right. And for people addicted to the scripture, you think about the threshing floors, you think about the threshing sleds. Still's not dealt with God, it's threshed with a stick. They didn't know that. Abraham, it doesn't seem like they were doing that, but that was gradually, they perfected these things. We do have a history, it's in the Bible. We got sugar in the Bible? Would they sweeten did they ever talk about, bring me something that's yummy sweet? I think so.
Yeah,
But
more often it has to do with the colors of dyes and stuff, what you could sport for threads, which is just aesthetics. But
corns, beans, and squash, those are the three sisters in South America. Yeah. They had 3 crops in New Guinea. One they fed to their pigs. It was called gravel. Then gravel turned into sugar.
There were bananas, taro, and something they'd call the pit, what today we know as sugarcane. Now, unlike bananas and taro, the Melanesians didn't actually eat sugar. Instead, they fed the cane to their domesticated pigs, and that would be the extent of the use of sugarcane for much of ancient history. Now, New Guinea was not the only place where sugarcane grew wild. It's a grass, and in nature there were versions all throughout the Asian tropics. But this was the only varietal cultivated and the only one that animals seemed to like to eat.
They look like they like
it. Genetic adaptation seen nowhere else in nature.
I stared at this for a few minutes, and sugarcane is weird. That's
essentially when the plant would go through photosynthesis, it would
compared to chewing on cocoa leaves for a totally different reason.
Yeah, they could have done. Yeah, they could blow our mind with the. I wouldn't mind chewing some of those cocoa leaves sometime. But it was weird before, and then the way photosynthesis only reacts with that plant that the monkeys love and the pigs, it got weirder. Look at that ADP. That's small.
Converts sunlight into 2 forms of energy, glucose and fructose, and those molecules would combine into sucrose or sugar. Now, that's not the unique part. Every plant makes sugar. That's what photosynthesis is. But usually it's used right away to make fruits or new leaves or to grow taller.
Anyway, blah, blah, blah. You got to use it real quick, or within 15 minutes it goes bad. Somehow you got to crystallize it.
Then soon enough, the canes were
what's big here in the spring is when the sap's running, and it's for syrup, maple syrup.
That piece of cane sugar we were looking at, it looked like it was about ready to explode. So they melt it.
And crystallize. This would leave behind fragments referred to as khanda, Sanskrit for small pieces and the root of the modern word candy. And since a pile of khanda looked like a bunch of rocks, the locals called it sharkara, meaning gravel. Today we pronounce that word sugar.
You know how this guy got famous? He's a bartender from Malaysia or something like that, breaking down the sugar thing. We saw the Tortuga. Maybe we'll come back to him. All his recent history, something happened in 1998. How did
88.
all 88, not 1888, your favorite year, but Ronald Reagan, World War II. I was studying the internment to the Japanese, and I found out that there were class action suits played. I kept studying. I found out, it was about this. Not all Japanese. Japanese from 90% from San Francisco, but only from the West Coast. Japanese from the East Coast aren't mentioned as ever being interned. That was weird. You see, here's some Japanese from over here, but basically, if you lived in these states, you were going to get interned. They almost won World War II. The four nations had to gang up on them with a fake atomic weapon, but they got reparations. First time the United States ever said, this is beyond you can't just lock them up, this ex parte Indo, blah, blah, blah. And one of the fine print was that since you have to pay them, you have to pay some of the Aleutians. This will be the only time America admits it's wrong. We'll pay the Japanese and the Aleutians. And I was going like, what would we do to them? I guess we forced them to kill seals. All the top hats in Europe and the United States, they got them on that island. So it got affected in World War II also, but it was St. Paul and St. George Island. They called it Alaska, but there was the Russian American company, the first joint venture stock offered on 1968, and it was club the seals, skin them, and make top hats. They'd club them, and then they'd make the top hats. And then later on, they'd ban it, and they'd say, if you have any compassion at all, you'd feel sorry for those seals and the way they're being destroyed. It's a lot. So now we can get outraged about it. How'd they even know about it? Look at where they're in the middle of nowhere, RJ. But that's where seals have been going to since the Mudflood. And then they got reparations also because the Russian American company, a monopoly that operated through 1870, 1890, and then changed the name and went to 1910, decided it's too expensive. So let's go to possibly Tartaria, what they call Siberia, kidnap those people I showed you the pictures of, and make them kill the seals, and we'll provide them food, shelter, and all the necessities. Well, the United States Congress, when they were doing that Japanese thing, they decided that sounds like slavery, so we're going to give them money too. Not a lot of people talk about this, RJ. I think it's a big connection.
Sure.
You know what they do there now? It's one of the biggest bird watching things in the world. 102 people still live there. The rest of the people took their money and said, I'm getting out of here, man. Here's a flag from the Russian American company. They were a big deal. We were partners with Russia. We would get slaves and make them get the top hats so white people could dress up. It's still an icon, a top hat, you know, that's play Monopoly. There's one of the pieces is simply a top hat. Oh, no. There they are. Started out with sugar. There's that hat. Hey, you guys, guess what? Now you're slaves. Because I want their own money. The Lord of Alaska right there. Zikes. He looks like he's ominous. Here's the city they live in now. People go there to look at the birds because it's on the migratory path. Thought you might want to see some of those. Here's the other island where they had the slaves. That looks like it's man-made. Cool, it crashed. And who knows what terrible things happened to these children. Their parents were out clubbing the seals to make the top hats. Moving closer to the day, Laurel Canyon sure does get a lot of press. These are some pretty big movie stars. Since RJ never gets to see the TV stuff. Look, RJ, this is how they advertised movies in 2002.
Take care of Alex, please. We don't want her joining the Scientology.
It's Batman.
How long are you staying with your mother?
We're staying at her house, but she's not living there now.
Hi. What time is it?
She's an executive, isn't she? Not exactly.
This is my son. Sam.
Some of the most famous people in the world and the biggest flop. The Coen brothers, she's married to one of them. Again, Laurel Canyon, where I think the seat of Satan is. I'm on record. The seat of Satan after Armageddon. It's no longer in Thyatira. Was that the town it was in? And the old, you said where the seat of Satan is. I believe that it is in the Hollywood Hills. I've said this, you know, that's where it is. It's somewhere up there, Beverly Crest. They say it was originally inhabited by these people. I doubt it. You know, they were, you know, everything changed. The Wonderland Gang. Laurel Canyon Boulevard. Haight Ashbury. This was an interesting thing. Now look at this. Trolley buses passing each other on Laurel Canyon Drive. Where are the houses? The bus on the right is coasting downhill, is using the electricity to go up, run it back down. Only one picture there with the Laurel Canyon thing. I think it deserves more. Everything we had about music, that Tavistock industry, these are the famous people. They all lived in one place.
Yeah, they perfected that with the rail line, with the timing, the engine that, you know, when they had the hot rail, locomotive lines.
Yeah, that third rail.
The engine that is, you know, coasting down was actually generating electricity, you know, for a timing thing where an engine going up is receiving that electricity that the other engine is generating into the hot rail. Yeah, and it was quite effective, actually.
I remember 4 years ago hearing about updates from the mining sector, and they had those big trucks, you know, where a human is like as tall as the tires, and they never need fuel because they're electric, and they use the electric to go up to be loaded, And on the way down, the brakes recharge the battery so that when they get down there, they dump it, use that charge to go back up. And that's 4 or 5 years ago. Life could be easier, except, you know, we needed the everybody gone surfing, Jackson Brown, Doctor My Eyes, we're in pain, Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork, the Beatles, Stone Ponies. That's Linda Ronstadt and that crew. Everything has been presented to us. These guys did it. The Wonderland Gang, those people were first, it was cool to smoke weed and do LSD. Then they were class 1 felony offenses like murder because I don't know, even associated with the unspeakable things. So it's Laurel Canyon. How come the Romans invented steam but never did anything with it for 1800 years until these guys, you know, it was the British. Watt. They got the steam power going to clean out the tunnels, the canals. We wouldn't have had an industrial revolution without the steam, RJ. And then he died in poverty, but that's what he gets for being disobedient, slow, obstinate, spoiled boy, frequently absent, but good at math. So he developed steam. They got nothing but praise for him now, RJ. Crazy. Here's a little bit more of how the modern post-Armageddon are treating the new information.
Incredible colossal size, that it is something that definitely invokes our curiosity when we're trying to explain how it's possible that the United States didn't already possess these heavy press forges. And because of the technological gap, it was only after World War II. And in fact, not even after World War II, but well into the start of the period of history called the Cold War, or the undeclared conflict that would occur between the United States and the Soviet
Like it's in a science
representing
fiction
the Western and Eastern powers appropriately. When you look at this impressive heavy machinery, though, and understand its role in forming various forms of material into pieces that could be assembled into advanced aviation platforms, and recall that in the 1960s, we could definitely make the argument that the United States had achieved its pinnacle in aviation technology with construction of devices such as the SR-71 Blackbird.
That doesn't look like it was made by an American company. RJ,
Yep.
Isn't it a good thing that the Father has warned us to be patient?
Yeah, the Lord's timeline, is slightly different than, how humans.
Especially the way I've been trained to. I want to write as soon as I figure it out. I want everybody to know it, and I want to be like, let's fix it right now. And that never happens.
Penguins. I don't think there's polar bears down there. No, I thought they were north, but it's okay. Maybe there are polar bears down there.
Give this a couple of seconds. He's going to change.
It's all good. But yes, this was the map that this Flemish Jesuit missionary designed for the Chinese emperor in the 1600s. And then last but not least, in 1678, he's attributed to have invented this original steam machine. And it's considered the first automobile. Now, granted, it was just a model, but apparently this guy, who was a Flemish Jesuit missionary operating in China, he invented this thing. And this is the first automobile. So, if you're Worf, you can get in the holodeck and you can try jumping on this thing with your batleth and, fighting the holodeck monsters. But
while I'm looking at this, I am fighting the urge to say, slow down. You know, what do these guys in their new fancy cars think they're doing on the road like that?
An incredible wheel, an incredible colossal size that we wouldn't see officially until later in the 1800s. So, do you remember the day or moment you woke up, had your aha moment, and started looking back over things with new eyes? Anything outside of history, hidden history, that caught your attention? Simple. It tended to be all the administrators that I was dealing with every day. They just all acted like they were simply talking on a program. That's kind of what started it, since you're asking. So.
And it is obvious he's not faking. This guy seems to have, he really was a former university professor that is using a made up name. I don't think his real name is Lucius Aurelian, but whatever. Hey, what's up with this guy, RJ? He tried to shoot somebody I'd never heard of, but it turns out that everybody in the world loved him. I'd never even heard of him.
In
Charlie
Dairy
Kirk.
Queen
Never
in
heard of
front of the same poster, you know, Superman, the Man of Steel. And then after the reported assassination, the spokesman for TPUSA quoted the surgeon who supposedly worked on Charlie Kirk, who said that Charlie Kirk was so impressive that he's like the Man of Steel, that even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him, that it was remarkable and miraculous. Is this really all just a coincidence? Well,
I had this
Probably
thought.
not. Probably
I
not.
had this thought. Sainthood. Because we all like Candace Owens in one way or another, but we're equally amazed because people don't normally leave Protestantism, and whether they still are hooked on the Trinity or not, like I'm hooked on phonics, you don't, because of the transubstantiation. They're just weird. Their weird doctrine of tradition equals the Bible, and the genocides, massive genocide, smallpox and killing everybody, and then saying, serve Mary if you don't like Jesus. They're the weird, they're the bad guys. But she has been invaluable source of information that Charlie Kirk had turned towards taking the mass and praying the rosary. What if he is called a saint because he saved people, people pray to him, and then a miracle happens that all of a sudden one of these people that gets prayed to by Charlie Kirk, he's fast-tracked into being a saint, and they realize Zionism is wrong. What we really need is to go back to the 7 Noahide laws. Sometimes my mind runs away because Father never gives any more of those, go on YouTube and say, thus says the Lord. Yet I have done that 3 times. Glad they came true, but it's not something that Abba is. These guys that say they casted out 40 demons last weekend, they did not. They're lying. For I don't know why, but people like people that cast out demons, RJ. You ever see that guy? They go.
Well,
They
it
go.
sounds like an honorable thing to be doing. Should it be accomplished?
Yeah, those guys, they'd love to grab us by our bald heads and go, heal! And we're supposed to fall down. I've seen it on the TV. The Clintons did it.
Faith in the Lord. I also want to get to this story because I want to tell you guys we are winning in a very big way, a lot. I think the waking up,
We're gonna get our asses kicked.
awakening that's happening right now, left and right coming together. And I do want to shout out
My
my
left and right are never going to come together. It's going to be a narrow road that runs from the fight because we don't want our children and old people served as hors d'oeuvres.
lefties here because I felt like I was one of the only people on the right who was anti-vax before it was cool. Like none of my kids were vaccinated, and people thought it was wacky. But before
there are millions of people on the right that didn't like vaccines. Candace,
I got there, the left stream moms were actually the ones that were like very on it with like, what did these products? And that was like a weird place. I didn't kind of fit in conservative land, being like vocally anti-vax, and took a huge risk in doing our Shot in the Dark series that's available on our website. I think it's the most important series for any parent to watch, whether you decide to do vaccines or not do vaccines. Please be educated, get educated about each vaccine. You will be shocked when you learn the history of them, how they came together. Maybe not so
he only needs you to go up, give your email address, your social security number, and your credit card routing number.
Post-COVID, but you will, I think, be very shocked at how much they lie and delude. And we have all of this fear-based reaction to, in large part, accepting what is poison. And so Trump,
people accused you of brainwashing Charlie Kirk. Did you do it?
Charlie would be exactly the kind of person. Like it's the beauty of a partnership, and they had a beautiful partnership. But I worry, I really do worry, and I just wanted to express that openly to you guys. I'm concerned about that for some reason, and I guess the best thing to do is just ask everybody to pray for Erica. You know, pray that she has the clarity to understand and have people around her who are being honest with her. Because I would not want to be in her position right now. I would not want to be in her position. Because where there is money, money naturally breeds snakes in the garden, and
but it's easy because she definitely is against abortion.
This guy's story checks out, and it seems to me that it did. And he sent us the data, and we looked at the metadata that he was the person who took that video. It doesn't make sense to me. It literally makes no sense to me that they would obfuscate these details when they're speaking to the public. So yeah, like I said, we are exploring every lead here, and I just found that to be quite stunning. I don't know what to make of all of this. I guess what we make every single episode is the fact that they're just lying to us about everything, about literally everything.
And exposing a lie does not mean you're telling the truth. RJ, did you ever hear of Charlie Kirk before he was assassinated?
I wasn't a Kirk follower. I wasn't up to speed on, what he was doing prior or currently or anything until the tragedy was announced. And that's where I've acquired any knowledge of him since after then.
I have a t-shirt that says, "I'm going to boycott your boycott." I should find it, except it's got its sleeves ripped off of it. And it definitely, we had our first night below zero, but it is supposed to warm up. So she trapped these people down. George Zinn, when did she, anyway, I was looking for more of an apology, but I got to move on.
The night of January 5th.
Because this is a gaping hole in my history that the king of Spain or the dictator of Spain, they were neutral in World War II, and yet Spain was the one who did the Mexico thing. They brought the Portugal thing. They always leave in its wake, "Sorry, we killed almost everyone, but we are leaving you the one true God." And then children end up having, well, at least 100 times, children had visions of Mary telling them, "Don't worry, you're on the right track. Pray to me if you don't like Jesus." Spain's a mystery, man.
1936, despite these being prohibited by the Republic. To give the Generalitat time to intervene, he was taken to the cemetery that same night. An eyewitness later claimed that Joan forgave the members of the firing squad just before the closed detonation was heard. He was executed and buried in a mass grave.
Because he wanted to do something about Christmas?
5 men protecting the monument were shot, and the monument was later blown up with dynamite. The image was originally published in the Daily Mail with a caption that read, "War of the Spanish Reds Against Religion."
It is almost as if there was another French Revolution where the world and they were really into Blavatsky and that stuff, defined all Christianity as the Roman Catholic Church, tried to stomp it out and replace it with eugenics, evolution, globe, vaccines. I'm missing a lot, but anyway, look, they're shooting it. We're going to destroy anything that has to do with Christianity. And these were the guys that almost took over the world and were fighting the French. Maybe they joined forces. Anything you want to add, Big Brother?
I don't know. Yeah, not that familiar with the storyline here, but
yeah,
not a lot surprises me
yeah,
any
the
longer.
dictator's name was Franco. He came out of this revolution as a dictator until he died in the 70s.
Yeah.
In the winter of 1936, Catalonia was experiencing an increasingly polarized political and social climate.
That's a lot of people.
Looks like
The Second Republic was gripped by deep tensions.
Nice turnout.
Yeah. The traditional order and left-wing forces pushing for radical change.
Starfolk.
In this context, one of the manifestations was the virtual suppression of religious celebrations in most Catalan municipalities, as well as any event that had any religious aspect. This included everything from the traditional mid.
What are they going to tell me next? They brought out the guillotines?
Quite the float for that parade, yeah.
So here's how come it came down to the point, like the French Revolution, they banned anything to do with anything mentioning what they considered all of Christianity. They banned the March of the Three Wise Men in this town. And the mayor said, not in my town. So they killed him. They said, yeah, in your town too.
However, there was a brave exception to this rule. Joan Rovira Ruhr, a state lawyer and mayor of Érida, decided to disobey the ban. A member of the Regionalist League, Joan Rovira, motivated by his firm Catholic beliefs, authorized the Three Kings Parade to be held in his city. Although it was a modest and discreet procession, it achieved the goal of filling the hearts of the little ones with hope and happiness, who went to bed that night with their emotions intact.
Well, that's good. Let's brainwash them.
Eagles took them to the esplanade of the Campo de Marte, where they were shot.
Well, that'll solve it. Wow. Did the Clintons do it? Oh, I'll have to find that one. Did the Clintons do it? But this is 18 years old. He's talking about, this is where I got the idea of the distribution. McDonald's and fentanyl, meth, they're the only things that are on every corner, RJ. And it's the logistics of finding the workers who are willing to say, okay, this guy's only going to buy a hamburger, so we're going to make 3 cents off of it. But it all adds up because they're not only in America are they selling these drugs, RJ, and hamburgers. Am I trying to tie in too much?
Yeah, I know. Life goes on in a peculiar way.
Until it doesn't, yeah. So here's one more I wanted to show with. We haven't talked any Bible yet, but I still have some more things here. The nurses study, that was interesting. Well, I'm going to just go with this one while you think of some Bible stuff, okay? Here we go.
Anyways, you guys, I want to get to some of the responses and answers that were given by Andrew Colvett, who is the PR agent for Turning Point USA. He sat down with Alex Clark and addressed some.
This is that same
some
video.
of the things that have been going
I
viral,
have a
particularly
timestamp.
as it pertains to taking down the footage in the minutes following the shooting, having somebody on their team take down that footage. You might be curious as to what he had to say. First, I want to throw to some of our sponsors. Preborn, I've watched too many people who I'm close to be vilified for standing up for truth. I've felt the sting of injustice, but I've also felt something else, which is courage. I think most of us are done playing defense. We don't want to walk.
Wow. So here's how it goes on. We're all against abortion, RJ. You know, God wants godly offspring. You can't do that by killing them. So I wanted to hear her talk about the thing, but the SD card, the sticking to the story of he is the man of steel. They found fragments of the bullet. They're sticking to that story, RJ.
The earth. All right. So Andrew Colvett, obviously, he's been a topic of discussion. He did the Charlie's show with him. And so he sat next to Charlie throughout all of that. They were very close. He's also the PR agent for Turning Point USA. And he's also the one that issued the statement, therefore, about what is now being termed the other magic bullet. And magic bullet being the first one, JFK. It kind of seems like when the government might be involved, you know, bullets tend to have magical properties. Anyways, I've said yesterday, his job is pretty tough, and it's made even tougher by the fact that if he's told to say something, he has to say it. That's just how it works in PR. And I'm sure there are lawyers involved as well. He went on to the Alex Clark podcast
and went to Catholic.
They explain away everything. Now, RJ, I don't want to sound like the Ku Klux Klan because I am not. But again, they exposed a lie. Rome, Jesuits, not our friends. That doesn't mean their clan was right about everything. The white power thing, not right. But we can't not expose the theology of Rome because we don't want to be associated with, well, oh, you must be one of those guys. You know what I mean, man?
Well, yeah, we can't change the past, but you can expose, and then as far as I don't forget too far off subject here, you know, I'm well aware of the criticism against Saul that became Paul, wrote much of what's in the New Testament, and you know, he claimed, you know, prove all things. So to criticize someone that's giving you that advice of not being authentic, I don't know, makes me wonder exactly, what, again, motives and intentions. But that's just me rambling. I don't know.
Anyway, I was recommended. Did you see that thing? She said, hey, look at Air Squib.
That's a exit wound or an entrance? What was?
That was an entrance wound. Where is that? That's the Spanish one. Doggone it, RJ. I had one that I was looking at and I lost it. I think I have to pull it back up. So it was the Air Squib, very false witness. Un momento. Hey, RJ, can you read this for me? Let me share the screen. Just a minute. I got somebody at the door.
Do not call conspiracy. everything this people
Right, but
calls a
start at like verse 6 or verse 5 here. I'll be right back.
The Lord spoke to me again, because this people has refused the waters of Shiloh that flow gently, and rejoice over Rizin and the son of Remelah. Therefore, behold, the Lord is bringing up against them the waters of the river, mighty and many, the king of Assyria and all his glory. And it will rise over its channels and go over all its banks, and it will sweep on into Judah. It will overflow and pass on, reaching even to the neck, and its outspread wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. Be broken, you peoples, and be shattered. Give ear, all you far countries. Strap on your armor and be shattered. Strap on your armor and be shattered. Take counsel together.
Sorry.
But it will come to nothing. Speak a word, but it will not stand, for God is with us.
All right, well, let's hold it right there. Verse 12, do not call conspiracy all that this people calls conspiracy, and do not fear what they fear, nor be in dread. I don't know if we need a new word or not, conspirafact or something, but we mentioned earlier patience and the fact that we're in it right now. We are knowing the Bible. We see some ridiculousness now with the salt of the earth, the MAGA, because they've had a lie exposed to them, but it's not been replaced with the truth. And the truth is what?
Well, if you have a Bible prophecy that I guess you're witnessing being fulfilled, and there's others that are going through it and they're full of fear, because of it. Is that a conspiracy?
No.
I mean, I think that's kind of what it's angling at. Maybe I'm way off base, but there is,
Say hello to Joaquin.
The method to the madness. You've been warned, so when it takes place and happens, you can't say you weren't warned. Yeah, is that a conspiracy? I don't believe it is.
No,
not when it's from the Lord, certainly. But yeah, that's just my evaluation.
Well, thank you. And it shouldn't be hard, as it seems to be, to tell people, no, stick with us because we're sticking with the scripture. Don't get me started on the book of the Enoch and the everything else, but line upon line, here a little, there a little, it will be figured out. Patience will be rewarded. We have and serve a God of love that has every right to be jealous. It's the other people that are wrong when they're jealous, because if we did keep our eyes on that one thing and say, that's my goal, that's all I care about is, that's good. It's good if should be looked at as the Most High. So it's a flat earth nation. Is there anything you want to add before I wrap it up?
Well, as far as, there's nothing to be concerned about or what. Well, no, that's not it at all. It's just sticking with the anchor of truth, and what he has done in our behalf and what he has accomplished and what he's willing to share. His victory is ours to those that are willing to remain faithful.
It is not to him or her that willeth, or them that runneth, but God that shows mercy. And he shows that mercy to many are called, few are chosen. They prove it by not letting go of the plow when things get tough, like they're about to. It is a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends will never tell you anything else because we're scared to death to not have your best interest at heart. Because once you're saved by grace, you realize you build up gold, silver, and precious stones in your body, in your heart, because you can't carry it with you when you go to heaven, and you will be judged by the talents you were given and how they were used. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios, amigos. You know that's how I like